Good morning, everybody. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, my name is Chad Colvin, and as I said yesterday, I have no British accent. I did not get the proper upbringing. I'm American, and I'm happy to be here over the course of this weekend. This has been an amazing event, and it will continue to be here throughout the day. Before I pass things over to Alan, I'm going to try to do this around once an hour. Bad Star Trek joke of the hour. So, how many ears does Captain Kirk have? You guys have heard this? Screw it, here we go, Alan. Thank you. Alan Flyng, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
I met some of you earlier at the banquet, the Star, what's it called?
Klingon banquet?
Yeah, it was a Klingon banquet. I can never remember the proper name.
Starbase 24.
Starbase 24, that's right. Which was fantastic. It was really lovely meeting you all. And most of you had absolutely no idea who I am, and I'm sure that most of you here also don't have any idea who I am. I'm a former actor. I say that most emphatically. I no longer act. But for something like a period of just a short 8 years, I appeared in over 500 films, and I did all sorts of terrible things, terrible parts, terrible makeups, even worse costumes, and decided it was time to give up. Time to give up and learn to do something else after I'd already appeared in The Empire Strikes Back. I thought that was the pinnacle of my career. So I went off to the National Theatre and trained as a theatrical tailor, and I thought that's my intro into becoming a technician. I'll become a costume technician and eventually a very successful costume designer. And so where my story really starts today is when I walked into Elstree Studios in 1982, February the 8th. I walked in there to sign my contract for my very first film as a costume designer with Glenda Jackson and John Finch. Did the business, walked out, and as I was walking out of the studio, the first assistant director from Star Wars, on Return of the Jedi at the time, Dave Tomblin, standing outside one of the stages, smoking furiously. I knew something really bad was up when he was doing that. And he said, "Alan, come over here, please come over here. Come do me a little favour, could you?" And I thought, well, Dave Tomblin, you don't not do favours to Dave Tomblin. He was one of the best first ADs in the British film industry. So I went over and said, sure, as long as it's short, because I've got to get myself off to South Wales to start shooting my next picture. He said, oh, okay. This won't take very long. And he sort of put his arm around me and dragged me into the stage. He said, we've had a little bit of a problem. I said, yeah, go on, tell me all about it. He said, well, we've had an actor who was cast from a photograph. He's been flown all the way from LA to do this little role. It's just one simple little line, and we've had him here all morning. 32 takes we've had out of him, and not once has he managed to get the line out. Because what they didn't realize by getting somebody from a photograph, even though they were going to voice him over, was the fact that he had a stammer and a stutter. So this poor man had been there sweating profusely all morning, trying to get one simple line out in front of George Lucas, and eventually had returned to his changing room and got out of his costume, which was wringing with sweat by this time. And the little favour they wanted me to do was to do his part. So I crammed myself into the costume, which was a 42-inch chest, 32-inch waist uniform for a 6-foot-tall man, and I was a 48 chest, 34 waist, and 6'1" at the time. I was shrunk to 5'10" now. And I went on the set, and I did it in half an hour. And everybody was very, very thankful and grateful. I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. I should have done this years ago. And as I was walking out, George Lucas came by and he said, I gather you've done us a huge favour. I said, that's all right, Mr. Lucas. You know, I did Empire Strikes Back with you, 7 weeks being directed by you, when you didn't know what you were doing and you didn't know what you wanted most of the time. But you're very welcome. He said, well, come to the production office. So I went to the production office and said hi to everybody who I knew from the previous films. And he very kindly sat me down, got me a cup of coffee, and went into his office and started writing. And I could see through the glass door he was writing a letter. So I thought, well, why on earth am I here? And he came out eventually, and he'd also been signing checks, production checks. He came out and he gave me the letter and he gave me a check. I didn't look at the cheque, I didn't dare. But I looked at the letter, and it was a handwritten contract from him. I thought, wow, this is a collectible in itself. I said, thank you very much. That's very, very kind of you. He said, we'll work again. I said, no, that'd be very nice, thank you. I walked out, I walked downstairs and out into the street, and I pulled out the cheque. And that bought me my very first house. He paid me, per word, £8,000. And I had no idea. So, in those days I was healthier. I ran the length of Elstree High Street, all the way to Boreham Wood and to the bank, put it in and paid the extra £5 for a quick clearance. And yeah, that bought me my house. And the next morning I was in Wales, starting my first picture, and the production office called me to the production before anything got started and said, we've had a call from Elstree. I said, yeah. I said, what's the story? He said, pardon? I said, we took you on as a costume designer. What do they want you with? Or what you for? I said, well, I did George Lucas a little bit of a favour yesterday. We don't want actors. We don't want to hire actors. We want a costume designer. I said, no, I am a costume designer. I am qualified. I've done all the studies. There's no problem. It'll all be absolutely wonderful. Well, they want you back there because they have a problem with the focus. I said, well, I'm sorry, you'll have to phone up Mr. Lucas and give him my apologies and say I'm busy. And that was it. That was how I got into Return of the Jedi. But since then, I've done another 45 plus films as a costume designer, which is what I'm probably better known for these days. So I've been very, very lucky there. I didn't make a huge career out of it, but a pretty good career. Designing films like Ronin, with Robert De Niro. I did Richard III with Sri McKellen, Henry V with Kenneth Branagh. I did The House of Eliot for the BBC, 2 series, and Wives and Daughters for the BBC. You name it, I've done all sorts of things. So all of a sudden, I got a call a few years ago saying, weren't you the guy that was in Return of the Jedi? I said, yeah, well, that was 27 years ago at that stage. I said, well, they've been looking for you. I said, who's been looking for me? Well, you didn't get a credit on the film. I said, no, I didn't, because I went in at the very last minute. I said, well, there's an entry on the internet about you, and you're identified as the unidentified Imperial officer from the Starship Executor, which is Darth Vader's ship, from Return of the Jedi, and you're the last speaking role of all the 3 original films who's never ever signed a photograph. I said, yeah, so? And then it snowballed, it went mad. I got dragged all around the world, which is fantastic, meeting fans, which is even more fantastic, and gradually it's come out about all the other films that I did, and previously as an actor. And it's my pension, which is lovely. But what is better for me, actually, because I've got a private pension, is that it gives me the opportunity to give something back. Give it back to the people like you who are the fans of the various films. So I spend most of my time raising money for charities nowadays, because I'm a cancer sufferer myself. I'm a survivor, still surviving, just about. So everything I can put back, I do. I encourage everybody else to do the same, because you never know in this life when it's going to hit you too. But let's have a little question and answer. See if you can come up with some interesting questions. I'll see if I can answer them. Has anyone got a question for me at all? Yes, sir.
When you were back in the early days doing the acting, was there any opportunity that you would like to have had that maybe went past and like, oh, I would love to have done that?
Well, no, I was lucky. I was very, very lucky, because at one stage I was working as a male model. I was working for Pierre Cardin and modeling in Paris in those days. I was a very pretty little thing in those days. And so that brought me lots of opportunities. I used to go around the catwalks of Europe and America and the Far East. Then I decided to study acting, and I went to the Webber Douglas Academy. And one of my mentors there was Joanna Lumley, who was an alumna of the college herself. And in my class was old Dirty Den and his wife, various people. We went through 4 years of being battered down and rebuilt as actors, and eventually graduated. I went straight into musicals in the West End, So as all singing, all dancing, which you wouldn't believe when you look at the size of me now, I appeared in 35. My first one was Annie at the Victoria Palace, where on my first audition I came out and they asked me to dance diagonally across the stage, tap dance across the stage, and then burst into song. Well, I managed to tap dance across the stage straight into the orchestra pit and burst into song from the floor. And they gave me the part because I was so plucky. But yes, I did a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals as well, did lots of national tours, international tours of that. Then I decided it was time to come out of doing musicals because my knees were already melted by then. And I went into TV, did a lot of TV work. And I think my very first job was on a film for TV called Quatermass and the Planet People. Yeah, I know. Where I was dressed as some strange sort of hippie with dreadful makeup smeared across my face and wearing a poncho and a bandana on my mullet. And that was my first introduction to filming of any sort. And it just went on from there. I've been very, very lucky. Always I've been lucky. Someone's been watching over me and I'm very grateful for it, thank God. I've had a fantastic career. I've never been a top liner, but I've never wanted to be. I'm what you would call a jobbing actor, or have been a jobbing actor. And a jobbing actor is someone who goes from job to job. And I've been always very lucky. I've never had time off all my working life, until recently. So, no, I don't regret anything. In short, in long. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Did you get to meet Robert De Niro?
Oh, yes.
What was he like?
I could say a swear word, but I won't.
Oh, right.
The thing with Robert De Niro is he's a victim of his own publicity. By the time I worked with him on Ronin, he didn't want to do the film. He'd done a 5-picture deal with the producers, and this was the 5th of 5. And when the script came up, which I got very, very late in the day to break down, he didn't like it. But he signed the contract, he had to do it. So he turned up in Paris a week after I did. I turned up in Paris in time to be given the script and told to read it, break it down, and give them a budget for the entire costume epic, which it was, that afternoon. So they locked me literally in an office with water and reams of paper, and I went through the script character by character, stunt by stunt, unit by unit, and came out with $502,000. And in the end I came in at 501,000. So they were grateful, but they said I should have told them I was going to come in under budget because they could have used the 1,000 for something else. But Robert De Niro arrived, and of course that changed everything. He didn't like the script, he demanded rewrites. His rewrites demanded that he spend less time on camera and more action be taken. And the designer, the director was Frankenheimer, who was famous for his car chase films. So a car chase developed, which went all the way from Paris all the way to the south of France in Nice. And we literally had to film in sequence through the entire length of France. And De Niro had a deal that literally anything he touched on camera, he kept. Anything. And it would be bagged up at the end of the scene, and it would be shipped to New York, where he had warehouses from which he sent out stuff to the hard rock cafes and the auction houses, which was his little bit on the side. And the problem came that costume-wise, he took a liking in one particular costume house in Paris to a leather jacket, which had been worn by Johnny Hallyday, the French singer, and he wanted it. And I said, well, you understand, we could use it, but it has to come back to the costume house because it's part of their priceless collection. Priceless, yeah, fine. But he had to do a lot of stunts, or he had stunt doubles doing lots of stunts, so it meant I had to have 5 more made. And at the end of the day, he insisted on keeping it. And the costume house charged the film something like 100,000, something like 100 for the jacket. And he was unrepentant. The producers went and asked him for the jacket back and said, no. was to a gold pen that he borrowed off a pop man, which was a present from another actor. No, it belonged to him because he touched it in a scene. So we had all these sorts of silly things going on all the time. And I managed to stay friends with him, managed to stay, but it was a professional friendship, you know what I mean? We were just